everyone. Thank you for coming and spending some of your night with us here. I'm Kat with the Valley Women's Club. I'm the co-chair. We are very thankful to have League of Women Voters here tonight. We have Dinah Sapia as our moderator tonight, Dee as our timekeeper, and Dorothy and Kit are our question sorters. So as you came in, hopefully you saw the process for how to ask a question, but there's cards and pens, and then someone, probably Don, my co-president, will come and gather them and bring them down and maybe sort it based on what the topics are tonight. Thank you for being here. Take it, Dinah.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Dinah Sapia. Welcome to everyone here. The last time we held a candidate forum, it started like this. It was kind of a sprinkling of people, and then people filtered in over time, so I'm expecting more people to come. Tonight's candidate forum for the 19th District Congressional seat is being hosted by the Valley Women's Club, and let's take a moment to thank them for hosting this forum. Our goal, as Kat had said, our goal tonight is to be able to clearly hear the question and then how each candidate responds. So to accomplish this, take the moment to make sure all of your devices are turned off or muted. And it's always wonderful to see the candidates take time out of their busy campaign schedules to come and answer your questions, and 5 of the 7 candidates running tonight are here. So I'll give you a chance to hear from them, but right now I'll just introduce them. Luz Acevedo-Gabrera, and Thomas Coxe, and Sean Dougherty, Tuka Gafari, and Peter Verbica. Oh, God. I'm going to look at my notes. Verbica. Okay. Let's thank them for coming. And as Kat mentioned, another volunteer organization tonight is the League of Women Voters. And our job tonight is to sort the questions that you come up with by topics and to make sure the writing is clear enough to be read out loud. This forum is driven by your questions. If you don't ask questions, the forum will end relatively early. So be sure you put in some questions. In order to get as many questions as we can, we keep a strict time schedule. And for that, Dee Takamoto works her magic. Dee has signs showing, you want to hold them up. Green means 1 minute, and yellow means 30 seconds, and then red means we turn off your mic. Another job tonight, as Kat mentioned, is that Dorothy and Kit are I was calling it the question curator, and I learned it's called the question sorter. So they look at the questions and help put them in an order, and then they give them to me, and then I ask the question. So as Kat mentioned, that we try to do a diversity of topics, so if a question came up about one topic, your question is going to more likely be asked if it's about a different topic. So try to keep your questions evenly dispersed across all the things that are important. Tonight, each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an opening statement. After that, we'll start with the questions, and they do a rolling first response. So where the first person is the first person to give their opening, the next person is the first one on the next question, and then it goes like that so that everybody has an opportunity to be first in answering the question. At the end of the night, they'll have a 2-minute closing. Earlier tonight, they participated in a lottery system, so the order that they're in up here is based on that lottery. Okay, with that, we're going to start with the candidate's opening statement. Oh.
Good evening, and thank you so kindly for having us here, and it's wonderful to meet the community. My name is Tuka Gafari. I am a father with 2 children and my wife here. We live in Scotts Valley. We even come here to this field over here for soccer. I'm a coach for teaching soccer for courses for kids the last 3 years. I also actively play soccer myself. I was born in San Jose. My parents came from Iran. My dad came in the 1950s, my mom came in the 1960s. So they immigrated here, and I'm thankful to be in this country. It's a beautiful country, and I can see how wonderful it is, because going back to Iran and visiting family there, I can see the differences, and I think it's important that we realize that. There's a lot of issues here in the county, or in the counties that this district represents, and I want to help tackle some of these issues. Some of them are included and not limited to, is like homelessness. It's sad to see how it's been growing and growing every year, and I've got solutions. And I want to help tackle these issues. Other ones are including like small businesses. We need to help businesses here. Less taxes so businesses can grow because they provide jobs. I'm very thankful for my job. I actually work at a large company right now, and I also do real estate, so my small business here. Another issue I like to tackle is the Middle East. We need peace over there so the world can be in a peaceful place, and that includes everybody. Again, I look forward to representing people in this district, and I look forward to your vote, and I hope I can gain that trust. Thank you kindly.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this event. Thank you everyone for coming out. It's critical for democracy that the voters be able to see all the candidates on the ballot on a stage like this answering questions that aren't scripted. So thank you. I'm running for Congress because we need real representation in DC. If you don't know anything about me, I am an anti-war candidate, I am an anti-genocide candidate, and I am an abolish ICE candidate. I don't take money from corporations, I don't take money from billionaires, I fundamentally reject AIPAC, the Israel lobby, any foreign lobbies for that matter. Does anyone know who Panetta's top donor was in 2024? AIPAC, I'll just tell you. Same thing for his 10 years in office. I've stepped up as a candidate because the majority of people in this district do not want wars, they do not want genocide, they do not want our freedom of speech or our right to privacy stripped from us. We do not want our communities to be terrorized by ISIS paramilitary force. What we do want is Medicare for all, housing for all, free college, child care for all, paid medical leave, paid family leave. We want our foods to be free of poison. We want a stable climate. We want strong labor unions. We want to tax the billionaires. We want a representative in DC who stands up to Trump, who stands up to the out-of-touch Democratic Party leadership. And we want a representative who puts our interests first, not special interests. That's what my campaign is about. That's why I'm running. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Peter Verbica. I taught in the econ department at San Jose State. It's an Austrian School of Economics department, so I would say I'm the anti-communist candidate. So if you want to look at a force that's been responsible for more people killed and more people impoverished, I suggest you research communism. Thomas Sowell is a brilliant mind and speaks to it, as does Frederick Hayek in The Road to Serfdom. So I didn't expect to say that this evening, but there you have it. I live next to Henry Cowell State Park. We love the outdoors, and so it's been a lovely amenity that my wife and I enjoy. I have 4 daughters. I'm really concerned about affordability. And if you look at what has caused housing prices to go up in California, it's really happened in the early 70s, and the hockey stick occurs right after that. It was CEQA, for better or for worse. So CEQA was originally designed for large projects like bridges, dams, roads, and what happened is litigators who have a strong lobby in Sacramento ensured that it could be used for private action. So anyway, I would love to have affordable homes for immigrants, and for our next generation, it's a supply issue. If you want to learn more about how I stand, I'm very candid. You can go to peterverbica.com. I also took time to answer the questions that were provided by the Valley Women's Club, and you'll find that on the website. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody. I grew up in Monterey County, then went on to school in the Bay Area. I was at UC Berkeley, and then I stayed in the greater Bay Area for a while, and then I came back to Monterey County at the start of the pandemic. So I have a very broad multidisciplinary background. The core of my experience was engineering. I have 3 degrees from UC Berkeley, bachelor's in geophysics, master's in earth and planetary science, master's in civil and environmental engineering. So the beginning of my career was heavy civil engineering, hence why one of my topics that I want to fight for is housing affordability. Then I had a period of time where I was an entrepreneur in renewable energy, and then I was a software engineer for a while as well. Now I'm actually a professor at Harvard College. I teach business, technology, and entrepreneurship, as well as physical science and engineering. And on the side, I'm pretty heavily involved in the community. Among those things that I do is I am in the board of 2 nonprofits. One of them is the Monterey County Free Libraries Foundation, and the other one is Chispa Housing, which is affordable housing developer. So I have, like I said, a very broad background. My approach is very centrist. I'm running as an independent, not taking any special interest money. So I believe that we can move a lot of issues forward if we approach it from the central, side of, can we work with both sides? Can we focus on the common ground? So that's what I bring to the table. I can speak to both conservatives and liberals, and I can focus on the issues and what we have together to move things forward. So priorities: housing affordability, healthcare accessibility, and infrastructure resilience. And the last one, what inspired me to run was because of what happened with the Moss Landing power plant fire. And as a former earthquake engineer that worked on the hazard of nuclear power plants, that's why I was like, we need more people with technical backgrounds doing this. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Thomas Coxe. I'm an independent running for the 19th district seat. My platform is to publicly fund elections and to completely ban political donations. So that would require 2 constitutional amendments, which may seem impossible, but I assure you it is not. 100 years ago, the progressive amendments were opposed universally by the power interests in this country. That's the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th amendments, and they all were passed by the people. The 2-party system has managed to gut our voice as people in this country. We were warned about this. All obstructions to the execution of laws with real design to direct, control, counteract, or awe the regular action of constitutional authorities are destructive. They serve to organize faction, to put in the place of the will of the people, the will of a party. Such parties are likely to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men are able to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the institutions that have lifted them to power. That was the warning of our first president in 1796 as he was leaving office and saw that the division of 2 parties was taking priority over the needs and the will of the people. As we move forward, we have to recognize that our Constitution is not being enforced, that our presidents are allowed to enrich themselves, that our representatives are allowed to enrich themselves in direct violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, that wars are being started without congressional approval, another direct violation of the Constitution. The solution to this is to ban political donations. That is step 1, to give the power back to the people so that our representatives are not put up for auction every 2 years, and the interests of our people are represented. My name is Thomas Coxe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. You all sound very passionate about the chance to take on this role, and it's great to hear your voices. So this starts with Sean Dougherty. This question goes to Sean Dougherty first. And this is kind of down on boots on the ground level. What do you see as the most important or urgent issue that we're facing in the San Lorenzo Valley and Santa Cruz area? And what do you think that you can do to address that issue?
The number 1 issue that I see people asking me about on online platforms is housing affordability. Like, people cannot afford to live in these houses, and there are people living out of their cars. It's all over the place. I live in the city of Santa Cruz. As far as what I would like to do about that, 1, I would like to provide 0-interest mortgages. This is being done in other countries, including Mexico. That could cut the monthly payments in half. It doesn't apply to everyone. You'd have to qualify for it, but that would be a great way to make it more affordable. I'd also like to increase rent subsidies, make more rent subsidies available, and I would like to expand the eligibility for it. And I would also like to provide more funding to the public housing authorities to increase the public housing stock. And I just want to clarify, I am a progressive Democrat. I am a New Deal Democrat. And I believe the policies that I'm pushing for are actually really popular. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's multivariate. There are many challenges, but anyway, certainly affordability is a big issue. If you talk to people who are young and don't have the benefit of buying a house in the 1970s before CEQA, housing is a huge concern. Why? Supply, once again. The other thing that doesn't get talked about and should is unfunded liabilities. They are stratospheric throughout the state, and they're unsustainable. So Santa Cruz County clocking in at about $1 billion in unfunded liabilities. The city of Santa Cruz about closing in on $300 million of unfunded liabilities. And this is something that doesn't get talked about. It's driven primarily because of defined benefit plans or pension plans. If you look at who contributes to political candidates, public employee unions raise about $1 billion per annum, and they spend hundreds of millions of dollars securing favorable retirement packages for public employees. So anyway, I care about affordability. I have 4 daughters. They're dynamic ladies, wonderful adults, but they, like many, without parental help, would not have access to housing. Rent subsidies, bad idea. What it does is it quells new housing inventory. Subsidizing mortgages, you're going to pay for it as the taxpayer. Thank you.
There's definitely many issues, but since we're on the topic of housing and it is the top issue, I'll focus on that. So I do agree that it's a supply issue. So we need to increase housing in the area, but I'd like to drill down a little bit more into it. We need to build housing for the people that live and work here, not for housing to become future vacation homes or for somebody to just purchase, a house to sit empty because it's less risky than putting their house than putting their money on the stock market. So I think we need to move some levers so that the housing that does get built is housing that's going to be for the people that live and work here. And so some ways that we can achieve that is we could reduce the fees as an incentive for developers that are going to be building for the people that live and work here. So meaning, we're not trying to go above $1 million, we're trying to go below $1 million so that the people can afford to live here. As well as, not that this might be challenging to tackle at the federal level, but I do think that we should tax empty homes so that we can put pressure on people to put their houses on the market for rental or for sale, and for developers to focus on building for the people that live and work here at the smaller houses, more density, increase.
Yeah, I agree with basically everybody that affordability is a major issue. I also think that in San Lorenzo Valley in particular, the reliability of utilities is an issue, and the aging and deteriorating infrastructure is an issue. I would like to see investments in public housing and investments in infrastructure and utilities. I think that as an independent, I would be in a strong position to bring federal money to this district that has not shown up in decades because we have been so reliably Democratic that they don't have any interest in catering to us. If we show up with an 80% Democrat vote every time, there's nothing, they don't have to spend the money to buy that vote, right? It's deliverable. So if I show up to the House as an independent in a narrowly divided body, I feel that I'll be in a strong position to bring money to the district to support public housing, public transportation, utility investments, and to help address the rising cost of living and housing accessibility and affordability.
Well, it's not a game of checkers, it's a game of chess. There's a lot involved here. First of all, I want to talk about Highway 9, the bridges. We can get rid of the sidewalks and make a pathway away from the road so it's safer for people. I remember the accident last year, head-on collision. I actually survived a head-on collision not even a year ago. So something to help the people and safety in our community right here to make it safer for the young people who take the bus, commute, walk around, ride bikes. Let's be honest, not in my backyard. We don't want the big housing units like the apartment buildings with 200 units. It's going to stand out of our community. It's not going to blend in with this beautiful area that we have here. So build housing, yes, but build it to be with the same kind of residential area that we have, so that way it blends in with our community. I understand we do need more housing. Another issue is homelessness. That's a very, very key topic to me. It's not a simple, let's give housing to somebody. Money has to be exchanged to have value. You have to work for money to make it of value. If someone gives you money, there's no value in it, and that's what's causing inflation, just printing money and giving it to people. So my idea is that if we can get, as a government, have a dormitory, have people come in, have a warm bed to sleep in, a shower, food to eat downstairs, and then have like conference rooms, and have companies give them tax breaks to come in and say, look, train people for your company, like whether it be like a tree trimming company, PG&E, or landscaping, electrical, plumbers union, whatever it may be. But these people need a job. They want to get a job and get off the streets. Give them dignity. Give them a place to sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're ready for the next question, and this will start with Peter Verbica. And the question is, how would you protect the California state lands from excessive resource extraction on the federal level?
Well, this is an interesting question. If you've ever driven along Highway 101, you see the sign for Henry Coe State Park. The heart of that park was donated by my family. So state parks have been near and dear to us, and we've had an active role, and I was on the nonprofit board of the park. So we have great resources here in our state, and I grew up with the outdoors. I'm an advocate for such. What I see happening at Henry Cowell, and I'd love to see a lot more of it, is an attempt to address the fuel, that if we have a fire come through this valley, we are going to be like a roasted quail. And it is a huge concern. Every time I drive and I look at all the fuel inventory here, it's just truly troubling. So what I would like to see is more astute and thoughtful wildfire prevention policies. I think we care about our air quality. I think it's ironic that some of the worst contributions to poor air quality have been wildfires in California. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's different from wildfires, so I just want to focus on the resource aspect of it. We have to be very careful with the balancing act of how we do this, because it's important to protect our environment. This is the land of our ancestors, and it is our duty to protect it from complete extraction and what's happened in other countries. So we have to be careful about how to do this such that the places that are already considered parks and everything like that, we have to preserve it. There can't be any extractions. But if there, and I say this because if I focus on the oil aspect of it, I always think about it from a risk perspective. Extracting oil from the ocean is high risk because if the oil spills, it damages all of our environment. However, if there is oil extraction on land and it's in a very low risk area, it's better to, if we have to pick between one or the other, then it's better to offer the alternative. But I do think we shouldn't have to rely on that. I think if we invest instead in like public transit and things that are going to move us away from our dependency on things like oil, I think in fuel efficiency, that's the better route. But again, if we are put up against the wall, I would say go for something low risk, avoid oil extraction on the ocean.
Thank you.
Our incumbent, Mr. Panetta, recently claimed that he met with Donald Trump and talked him out of drilling in the Monterey Bay, and I think that was kind of BS. In reality, extracting oil from the ocean on an oil platform is one of the most expensive ways to generate oil, and it was very unlikely that that investment was going to be made. The Monterey Bay is also designated as a national marine sanctuary. The problem with that designation is that it is done by executive order and it could be revoked by the president at any time. As a congressman, I would like to make that a national park, to put that in the books of law and to protect it that way. I think that resource extraction has been done responsibly and it has been done irresponsibly throughout the history of the Central Coast. There have been mercury mines in the San Padres Mountains that are continuing to pollute the lakes and rivers in the Salinas Valley. I would like to see industry pay for that and clean that up. Anyway, no oil drilling in the Monterey Bay. I would like to protect that as a national park, and that would be step one. Also, to try to get responsible industries to pay for damage that they have done, which I think is only going to happen if you take the money out. If you ban political donations once again, then congressmen will be able to represent their districts and not their donors.
Thank you.
So my job is here for the people to protect our community, and I am against any kind of windmills off the ocean. I don't want to see them along the coastline in the waters because they do create problems for whales. That's a fact. I don't want any oil rigs off the coast either in the oceans. Protect our lands over here too. I'd love to protect our redwood trees. They're very unique, only 2 places in the world they grow, and this is something we need to preserve. So I'm not for letting the federal government take over and create whether oil rigs, oil wells, pumping oil or lumber. So I used to run trains as a locomotive engineer from Watsonville down to Paso Robles, and you pass this area where it's just full of the oil rigs, the oil pumps, and it is just does not look pretty out there. I understand they're pumping oil, but it's not somewhere anybody wants to live. So I see what it looks like, and I don't want that for this area. So I really want to protect this area. Let's see. Sorry for a second. So yeah, I'm just here to protect our community, our environment, and our area from the federal government. We don't need to pump oil or take resources from this area. There's plenty of other places to go.
Having lived through this second term of the Trump administration, I do not trust the federal government. We don't know what the next administration is going to be like or the next one after that. I would fight to turn control of these lands over to state or local nonprofits as much as possible. Right now, the federal government doesn't have our interests at heart. They have, as Thomas was saying, they have all kinds of other special interests influencing them. We need to have the people who are living here, who are directly impacted by the condition of the lands, making the decisions on how that land is managed. You know, there's some interests that want to excessively log, and they create conditions that make wildfires more likely. If we were in control, we wouldn't allow that to happen. Someone living off in another state or in another country will let that happen. And you know, the federal government is just going to keep playing games with our lives. So we need to take control for ourselves, and that's it.
Thank you. So this next question starts with you, Luz Acevedo-Gabrera, and the question is, what is your opinion of one-payer insurance?
I'm very fiscally conservative, so my take on this, how do we focus on what's essential and how do we transfer things to the state and the private sector? And I'll tell you my perspective at the federal level. We're missing an insurance, and we're missing a healthcare coverage for everybody. I do think that's a necessity for everybody. However, the extent of what we can cover, I mean, let's be realistic in terms of how much we're investing. I think if we have preventive healthcare covered for everybody and there's a deductible layer that protects us from going bankrupt, that's what we can offer at the federal level. Then the differences can be handled at the state level, and that's where they can expand coverage, like California can cover more. And then whatever's left to reduce the deductible layer, that's where the private sector comes in. So I believe in separation of concerns and also having an essential layer that protects us and covers us on a basic level that we can afford, because again, we have to be cognizant. We're not trying to raise taxes again and again for people. So let's work with what we have in terms of taxes. Let's not raise taxes and instead focus on how we can redistribute our funding so that we have basic protection layer for people, and then the rest can be handled by the state and the private sector. But we are missing that gap, and affordable, yeah, it's a longer conversation, but that's what I would focus on.
Yeah, I believe that in 2012, the Democrats held a trifecta. They had the presidency, the Senate, and the House, and the main issue in that campaign was exactly that, to provide health insurance to people that could not afford it, because the people recognized that communicable diseases are out there, that people as a whole need access to preventative care to protect the population as a whole. And unfortunately, under our current system, the insurance companies saw this coming and just simply ramped up their spending on congresspeople and making donations to congresspeople, which resulted in them getting their complete wish list, which was a government mandate to buy their product and no restriction on profiteering. I do support a public option, a minimum preventative care coverage for everyone that we can absolutely afford in this country. There used to be a credible divide between the Democrats and the Republicans on this affordability issue, but clearly we have seen in the last few elections that spending money is not the issue. It's just spending money to profiteer or spending money to profiteer on the other side. So we're now at nearly $40 trillion in debt, and we're talking about an investment of tens of billions to hundreds of billions, which would be significant, but is absolutely affordable. Thank you.
My opinion comes from my experience. So first of all, I think we should have less taxes and more money for the people in their pocket. They can go to a doctor, any doctor they want, and get the care they need. I've seen people come from Canada, other countries come to the United States because with the government involved, they said, oh, I have to wait 2 years for my hip replacement or 5 years. And the government just makes people wait. And this is today. I still see it today. We need to have the open market, free market that we have here in this country. Remove the regulations. And I'll give you an example. In 1996, I got a job and I had full insurance. They said you can go get a surgery or a root canal even the same day. So insurance was great. No regulations from the government, no mandated health care from the government. When I had to have a knee surgery, $42,000. And I said, well, okay, I'm ready to pay for it. And they said, okay, well, if you're paying for it, it's $21,000. No health care insurance, half price. So if we have health care insurance by the government, we as taxpayers are paying for that. They are ripping us off and they are making it more expensive for everybody else. And who's making the profits? The insurance companies. And then I had to have another knee surgery and I had Obamacare. $48,000 a year plus $17,000 deductible, and it was $148,000 billed to the health care insurance. This is what we are paying as citizens. So every year, if you notice, insurance keeps going up and our coverage gets less and less. I think we should go back to the free market, let the free market go through and give us the options.
Bernie Sanders was the first politician who made me excited about electoral politics, and Medicare for All was one of his signature issues, and I continue to believe strongly that that is the way forward for our country. Study after study shows that it would save us hundreds of billions of dollars per year if we were to switch to a single-payer healthcare system. Now, unfortunately, because of the dynamic that we have at the federal level between red states and blue states, it's hard to imagine that passing. And that is why I like a bill that has been introduced by Ro Khanna, which would allow state-based single-payer healthcare system, where the money that would be going to a state through Medicare, Medicaid, and ACA subsidies could instead be used by that state to pay for its single-payer healthcare system. That would have allowed Vermont to implement a single-payer healthcare system after their voters approved a single-payer through a ballot proposition, and I think that could have resolved some of the issues that killed single-payer here in California, because we didn't know how we were going to pay for it.
Thank you. Well, I wouldn't ask Bernie Sanders for advice, the millionaire with multiple houses, but anyway, if you want to experience true horror, just look at dental work out of Eastern Europe or the former Soviet Union. It was horrific. They didn't have anesthesia. If you want free health care, you may get it, but the Soviet model is long lines, empty stores. So what I would suggest is you look at the Singaporean healthcare system. It's the #1 healthcare system in the world. An expert on that is Sean Flynn. You can go to YouTube. He's a very smart man. He raises the IQ of any room he walks into. And he talks about the benefits to the United States if we change to the Singaporean healthcare system, where people would be given an HSA. And what's interesting is when people are given an HSA, they treat money differently. They treat it as if it's their own. They get involved in preventative care. And also in Singapore, they do have a catastrophic net. So if you don't have enough to cover what's needed under the HSA, where money is taken out of your paycheck each year to contribute to it, then there's a safety net under that. So the other thing that it does is it eliminates the insurance companies as negotiators. It allows you to directly negotiate with physicians, and you know what it's going to cost. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're to the next question now. It starts with Thomas Cox. And I'm trying to rephrase the question a little bit, so there's a broader question, but there's a lot of concern in this area about disaster relief. So the question is, what are some of the ways that you would be able to secure more funding for disaster relief?
Yeah, we have floods, we have fires. As I said before, we're just reliably Democrat, and it really doesn't serve our interests. We are on that side of the culture war. I identify with a lot of those issues, but if we're turning in 85% votes for Democrats every time, they're not going to invest in us. If you look at the Green New Deal that just happened under the Biden administration, where did that money get spent? Because it certainly wasn't here. They spent it in districts that they hoped that they could flip. They spent it in districts that they hoped they could flip in 10 years. We have hydrogen companies. Why didn't they get invested? We have electrification companies. Why didn't they get invested in? Because we are reliably Democrat. If we want to wake up the Democratic Party, we should shake their stronghold and say, hey, we want investment here too. We want new fire engines. We want better infrastructure. We want to be able to evacuate people, and we want to subsidize flood and fire insurance, which is becoming extremely unaffordable here. And I think as an independent, I would be in a strong position to bring those services and those funds to this district.
So my experiences will help out with that. I actually did search and rescue for 9 years. I was an EMT. Also for 7.5 years, I was with the Sheriff's Department, Butte County Sheriff's Department. And so understanding and being actually out in the field, working out there and volunteering days and nights for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, looking for a missing hiker, missing person, or a car over the cliff. I've done that. I've done rappelling. So working at the volunteer fire departments, working at the Sheriff's Department, search and rescue, there is a department here at the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. Communications, I'm actually a ham radio operator also, so that's important. Monterey County, actually Monterey area, they actually have an article on the KSBW. They want to spend millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to get communications. I'm actually a ham radio operator. It doesn't take millions of dollars to set up a couple of repeaters and voting systems. These are things that we do as a hobby, as myself. I've been doing it since the 90s. So understanding communications and understanding what's it like in the terrain, getting people, volunteers, equipment for the search and rescue departments, whatever it may be, put them together. I can get their boots on the ground, talk with the communities, and find out what the issues are to ensure we get the right funding that we can from Congress.
Well, I'm going to repeat myself and say that I don't trust the federal government right now, and it's hard for me to imagine a future in the next few terms where we can rely on the federal government. So what I would be fighting for is keeping more money in the hands of the state of California. We're a very wealthy state, and we're paying a lot more into the federal government than we're getting back. So let's try to keep that money here, and let's have more of our own funding for disaster relief. And one way that we could help with that is by eliminating the salt tax cap that Trump imposed. Let's get rid of that, and let's help keep more money here in the state. Also, as far as what's currently in place, I know there are some grants that are available for home hardening, but they're given out to like organizations, not directly to homeowners, and that's been a real problem for people in smaller communities like this. I would definitely fight for direct grants to homeowners, although there is one like that, but it's almost useless. It's like for people who are 200% of the federal poverty level, which means like 5% of homes here in the valley would qualify. So I would introduce a bill that would provide direct funding for home hardening for really any income level up to say $5,000 or $10,000.
You know, I could pick up $120 billion by not funding a train to nowhere. So I don't think California is the best steward of money. As I say, stay skeptical, whether you're skeptical of the federal government or the state government. I like the idea of DOGE. I like the idea of audits and accountability. I loved Tom Decker's article, Tale of Two Cities, that he wrote. He was a former supervisorial candidate here, and he wrote about the CZU fire, where we lost 1,000 homes. Very few have been rebuilt because of regulations and slush fund expenses that go to the county to supposedly help homelessness, versus the same horrific event, natural disaster in Florida. With the governor's help, 1,000 homes were rebuilt in record time because you marshaled all of those resources. So I feel like we can be our own worst enemy, and I'm all for California getting its fair share of taxes that are paid into the federal government, but I'm also asking that we take a hard look at accountability and where our money is spent, because I think it's been misprioritized. I asked Bruce McPherson, why don't we have a train to Los Gatos? Well, that would cost a few $1 billion. I'm like, well, let's have one. So anyway, that's enough out of me. Thank you.
I definitely want to echo the audit and accountability that was just mentioned. I think we have to give very detail with how we allocate funds and where that money is going to make sure that it's actually addressing the issues that are impacting the community. Specifically, having been a former earthquake engineer and worked on the seismic hazard of things like nuclear power plants and buildings like hospitals and what have you. So I was dealing with very high-risk structures, and so I think we need to move everything towards hazard and risk so that we can assess where are the biggest hazard locations, and money needs to be tied to how we invest in hazard. So, and I think this is something that I could take at the federal level by sitting in specific committees that are dealing with infrastructure and hazard and risk. So we need to have that kind of a focus, as well as improve our response time to disasters, because what happened with the Moss Landing power plant fire, we didn't hear that something was up until many hours later, and I think that's a huge issue. I worked on the earthquake early warning system back in the day when I was at Berkeley, and it's so key to have information given to you within seconds of when something is happening. So we need to improve our systems of response in giving information to people, as well as, thank you, I've run out of time.
Thank you. So this next question now is by Tuka Gafari. And I want you all to have an opportunity to answer this question as broadly as you'd like to answer it. So the question is, how would you be different than the incumbent?
Oh, jeez.
Okay?
90 seconds?
Yeah. It doesn't have to just be issue-driven. There might be other things you could differentiate yourself, but how would you be different than the incumbent?
Okay. So, why would you vote for me? Who am I? I'm somebody who actually, with my experience in real estate, gone through the experience, a bad situation. I've taken my heart into it and learned it quite well. So if I'm a member of Congress and I'm able to represent this community, this area, I take that as an honor, but I also take a high fiduciary duty to make sure and ensure any monies and funds I get for our community from taxpayers, that it's done to the highest degree, the best that we can spend it to ensure that it's helping our community, our people. Near and dear to my heart is the homeless situation. I didn't get a chance to finish that, but basically having people come and get trained, getting jobs, working for, let's say, 3 or 6 months, living there in the dormitory. Let's not tax them for 3 or 6 months. Let them save up as much money and then get out to the real world, get an apartment. Let them build their way up to get into the community, back and re-engage with everyone. It's sad to see people on the street. We're America. We're Americans, and we should have a better way of dealing with this, instead of just, right now, currently California just gives about $86,000 per person spending to a nonprofit, and only $300 goes to the person per year. So if you're a nonprofit, do you want to solve the problem? No, you want to continue to expand more and more homeless people, and they've been bussed in from across the nation. This is sad, playing with people's lives. Same with immigration. My wife came here, and I got all the paperwork done for her. She immigrated legally, and it's not that difficult. It's very easy. We have to help people to come here the right way.
The number way that I would be different than the incumbent, and we are of the same political party, Jimmy and I, the way that I would be different from him is that I take clean campaign donations. I don't take campaign donations from corporations, corporate PACs. I don't take campaign donations from APAC, which is his #1 donor. And therefore, I would not support a militaristic foreign policy. I would not support a genocide in Palestine. I would not support a war with Iran. I would not be taking campaign donations from weapons manufacturers like he does, and I would support shrinking our military. We could drastically cut our military. Stop trying to rule the world with this global military. Just protect our shores, and all that money that we would save, hundreds of billions per year, we could put into all the social programs that I was listing before. That wasn't pie in the sky, the stuff I was talking about. Medicare for all, housing for all, college for all, childcare for all. We have the money for that. It's just misallocated. And it is because I would not be beholden to these special interests that I would be able to do what's in the best interest of us, the people that live here. Also, I go to town halls that are unscripted, let people come and ask me questions and maybe give you more time to talk than myself, not filibuster for 45 minutes. If I was running for re-election, I would come participate in forums like this so that the voters can see what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm already a little bit different in that my dad wasn't head of the CIA, and I don't have $5 million almost in a war chest to run for office. But anyway, if you're a centrist, and we may not have any here today, but if you're a centrist, I would suggest to you that you look at Panetta's record, because the man is no moderate. In fact, if you have daughters, he voted reportedly on HR 28, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. He voted no. You know, I thought that's what we had Title IX for, to advocate for women. He was against the SAVE Act, reportedly, the voter ID proof of citizenship. I think 70% of Californians are for that. If you look at the Protect Children's Innocence Act, that prescribed criminality for certain medical procedures on minors, he voted against that. So if you are a moderate, if you are a centrist, I will tell you that Panetta is not your candidate. So I would say take a hard look at his record, not just what he says. I think he's great at positioning himself and marketing himself, but look at the man's record. The facts speak for themselves. Thank you.
I would start with the not taking money from special interest groups, because that is high risk to us as community people. And I would also focus on the fact that because I'm not tied to a party, I can keep my independent mind and focus on what needs to be done, as opposed to, am I gonna make the party happy? Am I gonna make my funders happy? I don't have that problem. So I can go day one straight to solving issues. And that plays to my engineering background as a problem solver, which is something that he lacks. He doesn't have an engineering background. Therefore, he looks at things from a different perspective. And we're definitely missing that perspective, because an engineer is gonna look at how to solve problems. With my background, I'm going to look at everything from the lens of risk and hazard, which I think we're missing heavily. At the same time, coming from an entrepreneurial background, I didn't mention that I have a master's in business management, and also currently almost done with my MBA. So I'm bringing my entrepreneurial side and I'm bringing my engineering side, so I can focus on innovative solutions that are low cost to taxpayers, because you pay more than enough taxes. How can I work with the money that we do have to come up with innovative solutions that are actually going to solve problems? And what are those levers? And so I think that's my value add. That's what I bring to the table. And
what got me into this race, what got me mad enough to put my time and money on the line, was that after federal agents started killing people on the streets, our representatives still wouldn't sign up to impeach Secretary Noem, still wouldn't sign up to impeach the president. And I think that, as I said in my opening statement, if we're not going to hold our executives and our representatives to what their responsibilities are in the Constitution, then we are going to lose a lot. We're going to lose the entire functioning of this country. So I thought that, you know, what I really cared about, what my platform was, seemed really difficult to achieve, but I thought that if people didn't have the option to vote for that, which I've come to realize that a lot of people agree with me. That almost everybody I've talked to have been like, oh, wouldn't that be great? If they didn't have that option to vote for it, then they would never achieve that. So that would be the first thing that I would be different about, is that I believe in accountability of the executives and that Congress has a duty to balance the executive branch. I also would not take money from giant corporations, and I would not vote along the interests of giant corporations. It is legalized bribery that we're living under. It is a legal system of corruption where our representatives sell their vote, and it is unacceptable.
Thank you. We're to the next question now, and Sean Dougherty, you go first on this one. And this question is, how will you protect services for disabled people when so much money has been cut from Medicaid?
As a legislator, we can actually introduce laws that require that money to be spent. I guess we're talking right now in part about the way the Trump administration is just withholding money from Medicaid. Is that in part what we're talking about? Well, I could pass legislation that would prevent the executive from withholding funds from Medicaid. And as I was saying before, I want us to move to a single-payer system that could be administered at the state level so that we wouldn't be subject to the whims of the Mad King at the federal level. So it's my familiar answer. Let's move control into the state. That would be my main solution.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, nobody's expecting all of you to be experts on everything. So some of these are tough questions. So the next.
Well, first off, I hate when our language is cheapened. We don't have a king. We had a visit of a monarch, the King of England. So we're not part of that Commonwealth. That's why we had a revolution. If you want a centrist solution, I suggest you move to Cuba. That's what centrist solutions bring. They bring, unfortunately, consolidation of power, and it's really competition that allows for better services to be delivered to consumers. I believe that we as Americans should have control of our money. We are in a state that has, I think, the highest tax rate. We have yet the highest homeless rates. We have, terrible performing schools. There are problems that are really cultural. You cannot fix homelessness by giving more money to nonprofits. You don't see any Jewish homeless people primarily. You don't see any Mormons. You don't see any Chinese Americans. There are cultural issues, and we disrupt the nuclear family. And I don't say that a nuclear family has to necessarily be a man and a woman, but we need to encourage and enable family units to provide for those they care about. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is something that I agree needs to be moved to the state. Because these are differences where some states might not agree with investing so much in this, but I think a place like California would be invested in supporting the community in that sense. And I also want to emphasize that there's also a lot of power that can be involved at the local level. So whatever the state doesn't cover shouldn't limit you from advocating for your community at local supervisors meetings. That's something that I did as part of COPA, which is Communities Organized for Relational Power and Action. That is in both, it's nonpartisan, it's in Santa Cruz County and Monterey County. And so we were able to advocate for expanded healthcare coverage for some people in the community. So I do think that there's ways to do that. I think heavily should be transferred to states, but also I think we can do this at the further local level to whatever the missing gap is. Thank you.
Yeah, the Medicaid cuts combined with the tax cuts of last year were nothing short of cruel. It was billed as a way to save the government money, and on the face value, I was like, hey, maybe something good might happen. But then in the same bill, it increased the deficit by an astronomical amount by cutting taxes for the wealthiest people. I think the analysis was that if you're earning $60,000 a year, you'll save $1,500 on your taxes, and if you're earning $1.5 million, you'll save $350,000 a year on your taxes in this new tax regime. So the first thing I would do would be to rebalance that tax cut. I do think that middle class taxes could be lowered, but we do not need to give handouts to the richest people. But you know, they get what they pay for, and they paid for those representatives to vote the way they did. I also want to address Peter's claim that we don't have a king, because if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it flaps like a duck, it's probably a duck. And what we now have, since we refuse to enforce the Constitution, is we have an executive that can make war at the drop of a hat. We have an executive that can create institutions within the government that do not respond to law enforcement and shelter those officers of that institution from state laws, as we saw in the disasters that happened in Minnesota. So if we don't want a king, we have to take it back again.
Thank you. And so I appreciate your passion, but I want to remind you that the questions are coming from the audience, and I know that you're here to answer those questions, but thank you for your passion. So
This is a great question, because this is something I haven't thought about. So this is how a member of Congress should work with. I want to have an open door. I want to be able to help the people. If there's an issue or a problem that's new to me, come to me. I want to be able to understand the problem. And that's what we need to do. Work as a congressman. The key thing I'd want to do is to try to figure out how to get funds or solutions, is to work with somebody in Congress. As I'm a Republican, I want to find someone who's Democrat over there in Congress. We have 435 of them, or 434 plus me. I want to work with them, because that way we can not have a bill locked up. Because if I'm a Republican, only one side of the party is going to vote, the other side is going to lock it up. Let's find solutions together, because we as Americans should work together for solutions. It's the disabled. If there's a problem or something's being blocked, we need to find a solution to help them out. So, and that's basically my take on this, is how to help each other, how to work with other members of Congress to find solutions, to find funding or solutions for what's being stopped. And I'm not sure exactly what funding or what's being blocked exactly, but if that's a problem, then that's something I want to resolve.
thank you. You guys are doing a great job. You guys have differences of opinions, which is good. We want a ballot with lots of options. And it's getting late, and so I appreciate everybody sticking with it. So this next question starts with Peter Verbica. And Peter, this is asking, what is your ideas of how would you balance the climate crisis with California's huge energy needs, right? How would you, what would be the way you would see balancing the needs for California's energy and the climate crisis?
Well, I wrote a piece on the Moss Landing fire, and the problem is that green energy, quote, green energy has costs. So we need to look at that. Our greatest export is actually pollution, to African countries where we have rare earth minerals mined for the green industry. I drive a hybrid. That being said, we need to look at technologies that aren't land hogs. We need baseline energy. The best, smallest footprint is actually small modular reactors. So, Germany cut out their nuclear power, France didn't. Now with the problem with Russia basically trying to foreclose on a democracy in Europe, Germany has to rethink their decision, and now, is paying the price. So I would take a look at technologies that aren't land hogs. I would acknowledge that intermittent power requires batteries. And what I would like to see is, if we're going to invest, we're going to use federal money to invest, let's invest in safe battery technologies that use less heavy metals, so that we don't have explosions at Moss Landing that end up polluting our food supply. Anyway, the other thing is solar arrays. They sound wonderful, but they're land hogs, and their efficiency degrades. I agree with Tuka's point about windmills. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to squeeze as much as I can into this one. So I'll start with addressing the battery technology. I do think that we need to have more reliability on battery technology, and this is something that we can have more investments in research and development to improve that. I will also say that we need to decentralize our electric grid, because something like what happened with the Moss Landing fire is that everything is centralized, and so if when something fails, then everything fails. You have 100,000 batteries like in one place without any risk to account for, that's what happens. So if we had those 100,000 batteries in people's homes with solar panels on the roof, that would have been a better investment for the community. Homeowners would have received reward for it, and we would have lowered our risk and increased our resilience for our electric grid. So I'll focus on that aspect from a decentralized perspective. As far as what we can do on the automotive industry, we need to have fuel economy be at the federal level so that we are running more efficiently. We also need protected bike lanes, because if we can make it easy for people to just have alternative transit, that would be one way to do that. And we need to invest in rail, specifically extending rail to this area, Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, connecting into centralized hubs like Caltrain, BART extensions into as further out as we can. So our investment needs to be in alternatives so that we have less reliance on fossil fuels and driving. Thank you.
Yeah, California has 40 million people. We use a lot of energy. We need a lot of energy. Rooftop solar is a great technology. I think that it is not a coincidence that while China was reducing the cost of solar panels by 99%, both parties united to say that we no longer want to trade with China, that we want to raise trade barriers to China. Oil money is in control of this government and has been since the 30s. So the first thing I would do is try to stand up to the industry to take advantage of the global trend that has driven down the cost of solar infrastructure to supplement the ability of homeowners and shopkeepers statewide to put solar generators on their roofs. I would also support investment in geothermal and wave power generation, which, it's a burgeoning industry. There's not really a good reason to rely on fossil fuels to power the grid. There are so many other technologies that exist. Also, the Moss Landing fire has gotten a good bit of attention in this debate, but I would like to point out that prior to the lithium battery setups, there was another fire in Moss Landing in the late 80s where the oil tank, the fuel tank for the power plant, caught on fire, burned for weeks, produced way more pollution than the battery fire did, and there was nothing that could be done about it.
There's a lot of forces here in this for the climate here to balance. First of all, plastic bottle here, okay, and plastic table. It comes from oil, so we can't get away from it, but we can do the best we can with energy for our homes, for heating, for lighting. I agree with, but there's going to be a balance. Let technology come in there. Let companies and corporations create better solutions. Toyota right now has something with hydrogen cells for trucks, 18-wheelers. So they're doing a great job. Don't tax them so heavily. Let them have money for research and development. Corporations will find solutions for us. Government doesn't find solutions. Moss Landing, the fires we had, actually 2 explosions actually happened. Our berry farms, they're actually contaminated with cobalt-60 right now. If you do some tests, you'll find that in there, and that's sad. Another government-run program was Ivanpah. That was done by the Obama administration near Las Vegas. $2.2 billion, it's cooking birds left and right, and it's worthless right now. And every single morning they have to fire it up with gas, natural gas. You might as well just let homes warm up with natural gas rather than heating up this whole system just to make energy. California, our gas is now going to be coming from India and South Korea in the finished form, explosive and volatile. That's why gas is going up in price, because we don't have the refineries. We have technology, we have regulations, and look at the air quality now versus the 1970s. We're doing a really good job. And with 5 times more vehicles on the road, I think our technologies here and regulations are better than having in other countries that pollute our planet.
Thank you.
To me, there's not a whole lot of a balance that needs to be struck in that, the renewable energy technologies that we have now are very cost effective. The only reason why I hesitate to talk about moving to solar and wind is that we need to have these big battery storage facilities, and I think everybody here has talked about Moss Landing. We don't have to just use lithium-ion technology to store energy. There are a variety of other feasible technologies that can store energy at that scale. So I don't think that we should be scared away from using these intermittent green technologies because of that Moss Landing fire. But I'm afraid that our legislators aren't considering some of these other options because there's a lot of money being donated by the makers of these technologies, like Vestra Corp, that's the company that made the plant that caught on fire in Moss Landing. Jimmy Panetta was the #1 recipient of campaign donations from them in 2024 in the whole country. So I think our legislators are being paid not to consider these alternatives. So switching to green energy, then I would want to also move to public transportation, build more rail, especially high-speed rail. That takes a long time. We're really struggling with getting that done. I know that. It's very frustrating to all of us. In the meantime, we need more EV charging infrastructure. I've got an EV. I bought an EV like 6 years ago. If I take a long trip, I can't charge. So we need to build more charging stations. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're to the next question now, and Anna, and Luz, this goes to you. So China is quickly becoming a global superpower. How should the U.S. respond?
Not depend on them for funds. We need to lower our deficit and not have to borrow money. That would be the biggest thing. Reduce our federal debt to the extent possible. Run more efficiently, run lean, so that we don't have to have that dependency on borrowing money. And I would say double down on what we're good at. And so China's gonna double down on what they're good at. We need to double down on what we're good at. And we're pretty good at innovation. So investing in innovation is gonna move us forward, running more lean, and making sure that we are doing a good job at taking care of our people, because if people are not taken care of on a basic level, they can't be successful at living out their life purpose. So this is why we need some kind of basic healthcare coverage, basic things like that are offered in other countries that we are not doing a good job here to protect our people. So if we can focus on those things that can provide safety and security and peace of mind for people here, then we can beat them at innovation, which is something that they might be good at replicating, but we can do a better job here.
Yeah, the United States, for all our faults, we rose to this prominence in the wake of World War II, and we created and gave a home to this institution, this is the United Nations, which has done, if you look at the history of the world, it has done a fairly good job at preventing major conflicts between major powers. The role of the UN is diminishing. Our commitment to the UN, especially under the current president, is waning, and there are significant flaws to the way that it works. If we want to keep China in check, we should not be alienating our allies. We should not be ignoring our own treaty violations. The Chinese have violated various treaties. In the example of Hong Kong, they were set to take over Hong Kong in 100 years, as their treaty with Great Britain said, but they just wanted to do it early, so they did it 5 years early. And that should have been a serious thing in the international community. It's a significant violation. China is an economic superpower already, and if we want to resist them as a military hegemon, we should rely on our allies and reinforce our position as the center of the Western Alliance instead of abandoning it.
Sadly, we made China a superpower. I remember when I was a kid or young adult studying about China and other countries. A lot of them were on bicycles. They didn't have the high technology, and they started opening up with capitalism, and they built up. Now, we have empowered them ourselves. Our products are made over there in China. China has 2 rules. Number 1, give me your patent. Number two, any and all materials to make this product, I don't know if this is made in China, but this is an example, has to be made with materials from China. So that empowers China, that helps their economy and helps them to be a superpower with, again, in the market. Everything we're buying here is made in China. Everything is made here with less regulations, chemicals that we ban in this country, but it's okay for over there. Even foods come over from there and they're not safe to eat over here. And we see those recalls or we see those problems with, like, for example, I remember Walmart, sandals that were burning people's feet. We need to stop making stuff there and empower our country, jobs over here for people here, and products over here. I know my wife, her family in Iran, now they're here in America, they immigrated. They have a refrigerator from Gibson, and it still runs, even today. So products made in the United States, they last forever. They last for quite a long time. Buy products from China, you buy a fridge today, it's going to be in garbage, in the dump, contaminating our dump sites, and filling our dump sites in about 7 years. They're only made to last 7 years. The warranty's good for 5 years. Thank you.
Well, the way that we should not respond is through military aggression. A lot of people see our overthrow of the government in Venezuela and our attempt to do so in Iran as an effort to contain China and deprive them of oil, and this is absolutely the wrong approach. We're roughly equivalent to them in terms of our economic and military power. Now is the perfect time for us to work with them to reform the United Nations and come up with a system that can work for all of us. We need to come up with a world order that is based on diplomacy, not aggression. And we need to be more competitive with them by investing in our schools. We need to make it so that any American kid can go to college without worrying how they're going to pay for it. There are a lot of talented kids that aren't going to college because they don't want to take on massive amounts of debt. And we should also invest in our own domestic industry. We offshored all of it, just like Tuka. I remember 20 years ago when we were all talking about, I guess even 30 years ago, but we've been offshoring all of our production capacity, and we do need to bring that back onshore. And so really, I think it's just about cooperation. I really think we can negotiate a mutually beneficial trade relationship with them.
Well, I'm a peace through strength person. China leapfrogged because of massive espionage. I agree with comments about us repatriating our key industries. We have a lot of most of our advanced chips are made in Taiwan, which is right, in the mouth of the dragon there. I think we have to maintain our space dominance, our air dominance. Those are mission critical. Unfortunately, Huntsville, Alabama is now going to be the location for Space Force. I agree with the comment about STEM, and U.S. students unfortunately do not participate in the global economy at the same level as South Korean students, Japanese students, German students. I'm a little bit of a polymath. I went to MIT. I went to Santa Clara undergrad and law school. So I think I'm all for education, and this is a key piece of the puzzle. And I think we need to do an audit of what are other countries doing well, and what do we need to change to make things better. I like that we're trying to address the critical ingredients for fentanyl. We talk about homelessness, drug abuse, for better or for worse. The one and done drugs are having a big impact on citizens in our community. Thank you.
So just a quick comment. Initially, when this forum was planned, we planned to have some other candidates for other things running. So we won't be going all the way to 8:30, which probably some of you might be happy to hear. We've got one more question from the audience we're going to do, and then it'll be closing. So we'll try to get everybody out of here by 8 o'clock, but this will be the last question for all of the candidates. And Thomas Coxe, it goes to you first. Sure. I smile at this because I'm part of this and I see it everywhere I go in Santa Cruz County. There is a large growing population of senior citizens in the 19th district. And what would you be doing to support this population in the 19th district?
The first thing would be to restore Medicaid and Medicare to where it was before these cuts. You know, it's a pretty well-off community in this area, but those subsidies are helpful for everybody. The second thing would be to bring money to invest in infrastructure. Aging people rely more on public transportation, just like young people do. And as we've seen, we can't afford, as a county, the investments in public transportation that need to be made. I would like to try to bring federal money to the district to do that. The Federal Transit Authority is pursuing these projects, but the money doesn't come here. And once again, that's because they know how we're voting. Our representative does not need to show us as a district that he's better than the alternative, because we've shown him that we're not going to consider any alternative. So yeah, as an independent, I would like to bring more money to support infrastructure, and I would like to restore Medicaid and Medicare to what they were prior to this last round of tax cuts.
Thank you.
I'm one of them too. I'm getting there. Key elements that I can think of for our community, for seniors, and for everyone, for public, is safety. We need police, we need safety in our communities. So ensuring that there is less crime, protecting our seniors and protecting our neighbors, our families, everyone together. Food is an issue. Some people may not have enough money for food, and that's a key one. I had a roommate. We opened up, my wife and I welcomed some people to interview, and we picked this lady, and she was quite old. She's a senior. And it was nice to be part of helping with her, like, for food, and seeing that what she had to struggle, just taking a bus to go and get food on a weekly basis. And we always did what we could to help her out, and it was nice. We loved her, and we miss her, actually. Communications, being an open ear for the people, the seniors as well, especially as a congressman. What are the ailments? If there's an issue with insurance or Medicaid or something, that's part of wanting to be as a congressman, to represent the people, not just the young people, not the middle age, everyone. And that includes the seniors especially, because we have a large population, the generation that the baby boomers that are coming up. So those are my key things as a congressman, to make sure I represent the people.
Restore Medicaid and Medicare funding, expand Medicare coverage, get rid of these attempts to privatize Medicare. They keep sneaking that in. Protect Social Security, increase the rate at which it increases every year, increase SNAP benefits. Also, I'd like to provide more in-home care that saves us a lot of money, and I think it gives people a more dignified life, and improve the public transportation infrastructure so people don't need a car to get everywhere.
Thank you. I think I'm the only candidate here who is endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association PAC. So one thing I would do is I would use the bully pulpit of the congressional office to do everything I can to stop the assault on Proposition 13. The comments about public transportation, I wonder how many present here tonight actually took public transportation. Sounds interesting. Fact is, ridership doesn't justify the expense. Sales taxes. When they were first introduced, they were at 2%. Now in Campbell, they're at 10.5%. Sales taxes basically increase costs. Same with gasoline taxes. You go visit relatives in Wyoming, Florida, elsewhere, and you see what gasoline taxes have done in California, as well as very low return special formula gas blends. A summer and winter blend, very low environmental benefits. So the other thing I would look at are insurance rates. Mine tripled. I don't know what yours did. I've got earthquake, an umbrella, and then also base coverage. I'm not on the FAIR plan, but we had our insurance canceled. So I would take a very hard look with the state of California insurance commissioner. In terms of the other thing is safety. If you talk to older folks, how many people feel safe walking the downtown mall. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is the best time to carry out your life purpose. I actually go to a health and wellness center in Marina, and most of my peers are in that age group, and they're living their best life because they're active, they're doing things in the community. A good number of them are involved in nonprofits, volunteer activities. So I think we need to remind people that this is their opportunity to live their best life. This is a great chapter. So what can we do is we can invest in healthcare to protect them, because if you spend your whole life working and giving for the community, it's our turn to make sure that you're going to be okay. So protect the healthcare piece for them, and I think that's something that we can probably agree pretty well on a national level that that's what they deserve. As well as the safety aspect of it. I mean, the public transit is like, yeah, you should have the option to go anywhere you want for free, because this is your, your time to carry out your purpose. And I think that we should be subsidizing you guys going out to health and wellness centers, because those are expensive. And I think if anything we can invest that's gonna support your wellness and your well-being, that means that it's it basically lowers the chances of you ending up at the hospital, because you're staying grounded. So whatever we can do to invest on that front, and thank you, my time.
So we're going to be hearing their closing statements, so we each have 2 minutes, but before we do, please take a moment with me to thank them for taking the time. It is very hard to answer questions in the blind. Right being thrown at you, it's taxing, and they're doing a great job. Okay, so Tuka Gafari, you get to start again. You're on.
Oh, I thought I go last.
Yeah, you're good. You're up. We talked about it, and you got 2 minutes to give us your closing.
Thank you very much for this evening. It's been enlightening. Some of the things I like to talk about is just smaller government. More with the builders. The builders, they have too much regulations, too much taxes, and same with the people. We need to get rid of those things so people can build, let industries work and help the people, because the free market has helped out for building homes. Everything we're building now by the government has been like compact housing. That's not where people need to live. They need to have a nice home. And I always say it's your money, you deserve it, not the government. Every time a government has a program, they have money and they invest in something, it hasn't worked, like Ivanpah or Moss Landing. It's been against the people. It's contaminated our environment. Let industries that are responsible, they need to do that. And they are responsible because government holds them accountable. I can understand some regulations, some guide rails, we do need that, and that's why I'm running for Congress. There's something about our community, it's like a spectrum from left and right, Democrats, Republicans, and there's things that the Democrats agree with the Republican side and same with the Republicans on the Democrat side. I have friends on both sides and we talk all the time. I believe in things that most people say, oh, that's not the Republican side. It's like, it doesn't matter, we're Americans. Everyone's all over the spectrum and some things will just be debated and never be figured out. So we all work together as Americans, and that's what I love about being in this country. We're free to think. My parents came from a country that you're not allowed to think. You're not allowed to have a different religion, and we do have that right here, and it's wonderful. I will say about the single-payer system, I agree with my old roommate, he said, I said, I agree with Bernie Sanders. And he said, what, you really agree? And I said, yeah, we should be more like Sweden. I said, I agree with that. And Sweden is more capitalistic than we are. They charge actually more taxes to the poor people than the rich, so it's interesting how people don't realize that. I always say there's no such thing as a free lunch. The more programs you have, the more taxes, the more inflation that we have on our society. So, thank you so kindly.
And go ahead and give your information.
I'll make it real simple. The real estate website is very simple. It's just tuka.net, T-U-K-A, tuka.net, N-E-T. You'll see the link for the running for Congress on the first link.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Wow, yeah. Answering questions blind is excruciating, but thank you everyone for coming out. I am a bold progressive. I think I made that very clear tonight. I'm going to fight for policies that I think are very popular in this district, including ending the wars, ending the genocide, abolishing ICE, funding Medicare for all. I've talked about a lot of those policies. I will not treat the world as a chessboard. I will respect international law, I will push for diplomacy, and I will invest money not in the military, but in our people. And you can believe me when I tell you this, because you can look at my campaign finances. You can go on opensecrets.org, and you can see that I'm not taking money from corporate PACs or from the Israel lobby. You can go to trackapac.com and you can see similar information. And lastly, I want to mention that as the only Democrat in this race, I think I'm the only candidate who can make November interesting. If you vote for, if a Republican goes into the November ballot or an independent, nobody's going to pay attention to the race. If I'm in there as a progressive, people are going to pay more attention to the race, and we can have a real debate over the substance, over climate, for example, and the funding of the military. So I think it's really going to matter if I'm in that race in November. Thank you.
And do you want to go ahead and give your, do you have a website or email or?
SeanForCongress.org. That's SEANFOR Congress.org.
Okay, and everybody make it.
Thank you. Thank you all for hosting this. I would say when I talk to young folks, affordability is the big issue. I ask them, why do you think houses and housing is so expensive? They have a very curious look on their face. So again, it's supply, and we need to get the obstacles out of the way so that I think it's the greatest irony that children who live in their parents' basements go to Mexico to build housing for the less fortunate and then return to their home, their parents' basement. So if you are a common sense advocate, if you care about Prop 13, I'm the only candidate who is endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. I'm not a cult of personality person. I am a staunch advocate for the Bill of Rights. I love our Constitution and everything it stands for. I'm a certified financial planner. I have a law degree. I'm a small business owner. And just remember, if you are near the center, the incumbent is no moderate. Just look at his voting record. I've received zero money from public employee unions, and I have a broad group of donors who've helped support our campaign, and I've had experience. I was chair of the Santa Cruz County Republican Central Committee. I ran for Board of Equalization District 2 and made the top 2. To my surprise, beating out the Alioto family in San Francisco. So I think there is an appetite for a common sense Republican. And I say, stay skeptical, both of the federal government and of the state government. And let's have our money being used responsibly. And let's also take a look at, the taxes that we pay in California. Thank you.
And let's get your contact information.
PeterVerbica.com. That's verb, like the action word, and then ICA on the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. So that's something that typical Republicans sign, but I signed it as an independent because I believe that we don't need to be raising taxes on people. You pay more than enough taxes. So my values are Central Coast values, which is support small businesses and protect our shores. And that's what I would be fighting for working families, for entrepreneurs, for small businesses, and for nonprofits. I think we've neglected the middle. We've been too, letting the rich live off their tax loopholes, and then on the other side we have sometimes some government-run programs that are not as efficient as they could be. So we need to focus on the middle, because the middle is where most of the people are paying taxes and they're getting the least in return in their investment. So that's my focus. I'm a centrist independent. I focus on the common ground, and I have a strong multidisciplinary approach coming from an engineering background and coming from a business background. So I think that's my angle, and my specialty is hazard and risk as a former earthquake engineer. So I think we need people with that background in Congress. and in general engineers, but specifically with hazard and risk perspective, that are going to be assessing our infrastructure, making sure that we're going to be safe and that we're doing things right. And at the same time, the part of me that's fiscally conservative means that I'm going to be making sure that the money is going where it needs to go and that it's stretched, so that we're not just spending for the sake of spending and getting more federal debt, and instead that we're running more efficiently and we're actually benefiting the people here, the people that are the ones that are paying the taxes. So that's my take on it. I appreciate your support. Luz Acevedo-Gabrera, and I have a little flyer with you can Google Luz for Congress, and that's how you can get my website, which is free because I'm very lean.
Do you want to spell Ana Luz for Congress?
Yeah, Luz for Congress is ANALUZ like zebra for Congress, and that's how you can Google it. And you can also do a QR code afterwards, and I'll leave the thing here so that you guys can see it. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, my name is Thomas Coxe. I'm an independent, and I'm trying to represent you guys in the 19th district. I think that money in our political system is the problem. It is unregulated, and though Washington said that parties would become potent engines for cunning, ambitious, and principled men, he neglected, or he did not foresee, that they would not desire to usurp power, but simply to sell it. And that is what we are living with now. I thought that my candidacy was an extreme long shot. The more that I've met people and talked to people, the more that I've realized that this is a very popular platform, that people want to ban political donations, and that if the will is strong, it can happen. The League of Women Voters has done a great job facilitating debates. I would like to thank them for facilitating this one. And I'd like to point to the example that they used to set by facilitating presidential debates. That ceased to function in the 1980s when the Democrats and Republicans got together to form a for-profit corporation, which they would then sell the rights to broadcast political debates for the presidents. So if that doesn't show you that this isn't really a two-party system, this is a system in which it is all for money and it is all for sale, then there's another place you can look, and I would send you to read the biographies written by Robert Caro. Those are The Power Broker and The Years of Lyndon Johnson, and they detail explicitly how money moves through the system in our country and how it can be traced despite the best efforts to obfuscate it. And if you would like to be enlightened into how power works in this country, I would suggest that you read those. Please, please, my candidacy will not survive unless you, who may or may not believe in this, talk about what I'm offering. If you think that what I'm saying is ridiculous and idealistic and impossible, go have a laugh about it on me. Go tell your friends how ridiculous it is that somebody's trying to do this. And that's all that I'm asking. If you believe in it, tell people you believe in it.
Your contact information?
Yeah, my website, which you can read the text of my draft amendments, is coxeforcongress.com. That's Congress.com. So Coxe for Congress, not the number 4, and Coxe with an E.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tag on to what Thomas Coxe said. Please do go talk to your friends about what you heard tonight, about all of these candidates. Try to be the mouthpiece for the people that didn't have a chance to get here tonight.
I want to thank all our candidates for coming tonight. Let's give them a round of applause for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for being here tonight. Thank you so much for your moderation, your time, card sorting. Thank you to our co-sponsors, the Senior Center. Coco, give us a wave. Thank you. Please grab food and drink on your way out and drive safe, everyone. Thank you.